What makes a house a home? Temple Ryan Farmhouse, built in circa 1750, was home to the family of Benjamin Temple, and later the family of Patrick J. Ryan. Thanks to the work of the Ryan family and members of the Ewing Preservation Society, we can still see this house standing today.
Oftentimes you think of your childhood home as being bigger than it was. Isn't that generally what happens? And it does look smaller to me than when I was 5 years old or 6 years old. And my father would be delighted that if he couldn't see the whole operation and the dairy, etc., that the house was saved. Because the house has, I think architectural people, it has good bones and it's got good vibes. Now part of that is because there's been a great bunch of people over the years that have contributed their time or talent or treasure, you know. But it is, I think it looks smaller to me. None of us really, my father did, and my mother thought it could potentially have been a showplace if there had been a lot of money available. On the other hand, it's probably good because we didn't make significant changes to the home, which very often happens, you know. This is my grandfather and my grandmother. Her name was Ellen Newell, and my grandfather's name was Patrick Ryan. They were both born in 1859 in County Galway in Ireland. And they must have known each other as children. They came over about the same time. I think my grandmother had relatives up in the Sourland Mountains, you know, in Hopewell. But my grandfather went to England first. To Manchester, I believe, to work for a couple of years, probably to gain his passage over here. They were married over here. They first lived on, this is funny when you think about it, but of course it's the way things were. They lived on Dublin Road in Pennington, and it was called Dublin Road because that's where the Irish lived. And my grandfather's first job, I think, was with the railroad. I think it was part of the Reading Railroad then, the one that comes down through Pennington and all that.
This historic farmhouse is notable for the preservation of its original 18 and 1900s architecture, such as the doors and windows, and paneled fireplace surrounds. The Ryan family lived in the farmhouse from about 1903 to 1950. They took great care to keep the house in good condition over the years.
They came in 1883, and I don't know whether they came separately or whatever, but they were married and lived on Dublin Road. But during the 80s, my grandfather started to become, work for the Temple family, right? So this is the Temple family who built the home in 1750. And there were a bunch of Temple children in generations, but eventually the last several Temples, they were died out with no heirs. But my grandfather had signed on probably as a farm manager. And in 1903, the last Temple died, and my grandfather bought the farm from the Temple estate. So we took it over in 1903. This is my grandfather and my grandmother. These were all of their children. My dad was the youngest. He played professional baseball in the minor leagues for several years, but then he came back and took over the farm and bought it from his parents. And then when his parents died, we moved up here. And that was in, my grandfather bought the farm in 1903. My father bought it from him in the 30s. Then we moved up here and we left the farm in 1957.
Thanks to the hard work and dedication of the Ryan family, the Temple Ryan Farmhouse in Ewing, New Jersey is home to the Ewing Historical Preservation Society. To find out more about preserving the Temple Ryan Farmhouse, visit ethps.org.